Hello, everyone. I'm here with Paul Heinze, and we're with Goldberg Heinze Business Advisors. Today's podcast, we're going to talk about the labor market and what it's like to hire employees today in today's environment. Paul, you've run businesses in the past. What was it like hiring people in the good old days?
Well, reaching back, Joe, I remember coming into a family business as a third generation. So there was a set of folks in place at that time. In our particular situation, there were well over 100 people. As a matter of fact, it was approaching 200 people or more during before my time in World War II. Usually, one of the marked differences when you chose to be a tool and die maker or a mold maker or a technician in a plant, it was expected that you were to invest your career for a lifetime. That's one of the major things that is not in place now. We had an apprentice program. We had a training program. Many people who got their start in the trade wound up to be, in decades later, our customers, which is sort of interesting. Tool and die makers came in a tie and a white shirt. It was a prestigious position in whatever large or small precision company you worked for. There's a difference now in the executive. The executives we hired in purchasing or in engineering came in three-piece suits. It's a little bit different, but there were no fax machines. And the first fax machine we got was a thermofax machine. And after 6 months, the photographic paper faded and your record was gone forever. Those are just a couple of things. What's your view of today's market? You've recently employed people. What's the big difference from when you began in your early days of business?
Yeah, back in the good old days, you had a HR department, and we had someone who was almost full-time placing ads in the Chicago Tribune, waiting for someone to respond and send in a resume. And then you would review a stack of resumes, and you'd have your secretary calling people for an interview, and you'd sit down and interview them, and then you make a decision. Today with social media and the electronic transfer of information, it's so much more efficient today, I think, to hire people. We've used programs, and I specifically, I personally use programs like ZipRecruiter and Indeed, and they're very easy to use. It gives you a lot of flexibility to put in keywords and then search a database of 1 million people. and it works out well that both the person looking for a job gets a trigger notice that you're interested in it, and it tries to automatically hook people up. And I will get anywhere from 1 to 10 resumes a day electronically.
Really?
I can sort through, I can send an immediate text to the individual. We can chat online through a Zoom, so you don't have to move. You can hire people quickly. You can interview them and do all that yourself without a whole infrastructure on the HR side, which is kind of nice.
How do you, with all the changes that have been made in employment law, the comparison in our day, way back when I first began, was fairly simplified. And then the implementation of a whole bunch of local ordinances as well as federal law of equal employment opportunity, down to discrimination, down to all sorts of things. What's it like to make the final decision now on behalf of your company, or advice to an employer now? What's it like making the commitment to hire, let's say, a purchasing manager? What are you looking at?
In terms of what type of characteristics I'm looking for, or
characteristics, maybe characteristics, but what steps are you cautiously taking or aware of before you make the final decision, because you probably are going to have to evaluate 30 or 60 days. Shall I keep him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or
What's that
her.
like now?
um, you know, we look heavily at references, and we will check those references, even though they may, be a friend, in that you like to get a sense that they are a real person, that they maybe aren't making things up. You try and validate some items on their resume against the references. You may double check where they worked for employment. It's very easy just to make things up today, unfortunately. So a good reference is always nice. It's great if someone knows the individual. Um, Personal recommendations from somebody is huge. Uh, and you try and make sure that they fit in. As much as we're restricted in terms of what you can ask in an interview today, you do try and get a sense of their capabilities, what type of environment they've worked in. Have they worked in an office, if that's what our environment is like? Have they worked in manufacturing? Are they comfortable working at home? Do they like working with people? If they're going to be in a managerial role, how many people have they managed? How did that go? What was the makeup of age of the individuals? So you try and get a sense of not only what you're looking for, but their experience level and how you think they'll fit in. Today, it seems like most employees want to fit in well, and if they can feel like they're part of that organization, they really excel in their job. But if they don't fit in well, no matter how good they are, they don't seem like they're going to last very long.
What do you see as the most dramatic management change of people? In the early days when I was first going into business, senior people around me, many of which who were hired by my grandfather, had a very, very insensitive manner about them in managing people, to the extent of insulting, to the extent of upsetting, to the extent of almost threatening. What are you doing in management? What are people doing in management today properly, in the management of someone whom they hire and not a family member?
Yeah, that's really a tough one. With managers today, we have to be so cautious that everyone is following the rules of the game. Gone are the days where you were the tyrant, and that would be tolerated. Um, we had a very strict policy of zero tolerance of anyone who abused an employee in any way. And abuse is a very loose word today, right? Because
Yes, it is.
it's not necessarily physical; it could be mental. How you talk to people, how you treat them, really important. And so a lot of times in a personal interview spends a lot of time on that interpersonal relationship and understanding how someone relates to their team, which is again a good reason for trying to do a reference check and see how did they treat someone? Did people respect them? Did they want to work for them, or were they leaving because they couldn't stand the manager?
In today's environment, letting the new person or the 1 year anniversary review or the consistent commentary on how the employee is doing, a 1 year or a 10-year employee, how do people effectively give feedback to people that work for them now in today's world? What do you say to someone who needs to change what they're doing or their attitude or their performance?
Yeah, it's a bit of mentoring, and again, it's a type of trying to find someone who has experience to lead people and not be led by them, and not create just a little clique of letting everyone do what they want. You have to have a structure. You need an organization. You need someone who is tough but fair, um, needs to guide people and mentor them in a lot of ways. Um, and the younger people we see coming into the work environment have a lot less interpersonal skills than maybe the days of yore. uh, and they need a lot of mentoring, and you got to help them along. You got to be a little bit flexible. It's I would say managing is a lot like being a good parent.
That's
uh,
a good point.
and you're parenting the children of our factories, and some people children are pretty old.
To what extent should an owner allow feedback from the employee in a critical sense? Like, I'd really work harder for you if you were better to me. Or, boss, I really think you need to get this kind of piece of equipment. Is that environment for that feedback generally welcoming now or not?
It there's nothing better, we've always said, than the most experienced person is the person on the line using the piece of equipment. They usually know what's wrong, they usually know how to fix it, and if you can cultivate that knowledge from them, you can make a lot of improvements. Today's Six Sigma approaches and many of the techniques in quality and quality systems
Yes,
foster employee involvement. It's no longer top down, it's bottom up. And the more you can get employees involved in the process of change, the more you can implement good changes.
good.
We always said, if you don't allow the employees to tell you what they need to do, they're going to do it on their own outside of the process, and that's going to be a train wreck. But if you can incorporate their ideas, you can keep the train on the track and actually, accelerating down to its end.
Yes. Oftentimes in our role, we find an owner or owners of a business who want to develop a subordinate, a manager, maybe a lead person, a superintendent, or a general manager to take over the operation, possibly with the idea in mind of selling an interest, equity interest in it, or sell the whole thing to them. If you had a lead man that you were a woman that you were considering to take over the day-to-day operations while you went and wrote a book, made a movie, played golf, whatever it is, what are the 1 or 2 or 3 characteristics that particular lead person can develop into before you would feel comfortable being absent for a month or 2 or 3?
I think it starts with good mentoring. That's someone you work side by side with, and will listen to you and will understand what you see that's important in your own business that they can pick up on. Then I think you need to give them the latitude to work independently and make decisions, and a lot of times make wrong decisions that are hopefully not catastrophic, but learn from those mistakes. If someone is working under your thumb, they're never going to learn. A lot of times you learn from mistakes, and then when they've made decisions that are great, you celebrate them.
Right.
Get them
Reinforce.
feel really good about it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've been talking briefly this afternoon about people, the way it was, the way it is, perhaps to some extent, the way it ought to be. We welcome your comments. We welcome your input and suggestions for topical discussions on subjects that would be meaningful to you, the business owner or manager. I'm with Joe Turek. I'm Paul Heinze. Our firm is Goldberg Heinze Business Advisors, goldbergheinze.com. Thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon, and we look forward to you sitting in with us again soon. Thanks very much.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.
Bye now.
Bye bye.